This is probably your image of Kiwis. Pretty relaxed, pretty chill, great lifestyle. A great lifestyle. This is the way we like to portray New Zealand to the world. And there's a great comment from Jimmy Carr who said that when you go to New Zealand, it's a long way away and a long way back in time. He said Air New Zealand is not so much an airline as a time machine that takes you back to the 1990s. And in some ways, it's quite true. But this is, pragmatic people. They are very hard to rile up a New Zealander. It's very hard to get a reaction out of them. Until you do. So this has been biosecurity in New Zealand in my time in the nursery industry, which is, 8 years. When I started in the industry, this is what was going on. There was a PSA crisis, a disease impacted the kiwifruit industry. The kiwifruit industry in New Zealand is huge in comparison to the rest of our economy. It's a big, important industry. You do not cross its path. So PSA came in, it devastated the kiwifruit industry, and this was the reaction from kiwifruit growers. They believe it came in on pollen imported, and they believe the disease entered New Zealand via that pathway. The reaction from kiwifruit growers was to threaten to sue the government. So $400 million. At that same time, we had a crisis there where we had imported germplasm of fruit trees from America, and when MPI went to inspect the records, there wasn't a complete set of inspection records. MPI said that they were going to destroy 48,000 fruit trees, not just 48,000 fruit trees, these were new genetics in trial blocks, and they were going to destroy them all, and that went to court. The nurseries challenged the government in court and won. And the other one there, a stupid nursery grower takes his plants out of quarantine and gets fined $42,000. And so this is the sort of, the context that we developed PlantPass. This was a crisis situation. Almost every month there would be an incursion response, myrtle rust, followed up by some phytophthora, followed up by an MPI were up driveways, destroying plants, shutting down the pathway, and we had to do something. We were really on the back foot. And look, what I've heard and what I've learned recently is that this whole approach to plant health, to biosecurity, to nursery systems is not unique to us. You guys are all doing it. So we have this in common. We also learned that a systems approach, an assurance approach, building trust is absolutely critical to making progress. You can't just put yourself on a promise and argue with the government. You've actually got to show evidence. So this is why these assurance systems are becoming popular. The problem is that we are small industries. We are remote industries. We don't have necessarily great production regions. We tend to be remote from each other. We tend to be a little bit less connected than maybe some of the larger production industries like agriculture. So we struggle to build scale. We struggle to build that cohesion. And that's a problem that we're going to need to solve. So through all of that drama, this was the solution we came up with. We got a smart group of people in New Zealand on whiteboards. I was buying them coffee, picking their brains, designing the PlantPass system. Now, we had the benefit of being one of the last systems to emerge, so we copied all of yours. We went onto your websites, we checked out your standards, we copied Global Gap, we copied all of your standards and came up with this quite carefully designed system, which is quite intentional. I'm going to go through some of the features of PlantPass that we baked into the system, which we hope will help it succeed in the future. So this is one of the key features of PlantPass that was very intentional. That orange logo up there is GIA. It's the Government Industry Agreement on Biosecurity. And what that agreement says is that industry bodies, primary industry bodies, will sign a deed, an agreement with the government, where we will go 50-50 on biosecurity readiness and response. What that means is that if there's a biosecurity incursion, industry is paying half. And what that looks like is that recently our dairy industry had an incursion of M. bovis, Mycoplasma bovis, that had to be cleaned up at the cost of almost $1 billion. And the dairy industry is on the hook for about $300 million that has to pay back to the government. If PSA happened today, if it was $1 billion to clean that up, and it would have been easily, the industry would be on the hook for probably half of that cost. Now, That's quite a unique feature of New Zealand's biosecurity system. I know it's in Australia, there's a similar, and in parts of America and Europe. No, yeah. Now, if you wonder why it's really hard to get plant material into New Zealand, this is why. Because those industries know that if the ornamental nursery stock pathway brought Xylella into New Zealand, the wine industry would be on the hook to clean it up. And that's why they are very, very cautious and very skeptical about the ornamental supply chain. The way they describe it is that it feels like a bit of a hobby, and it feels like a bit of a hazard. And that's the challenge that we have to reverse that thinking, and we have to create a narrative that's going to counteract that. We've got to get serious about it. Right, so this is the tension that we've created. We intentionally did not set the nursery industry up to own PlantPass. It is owned by the government. That's the Ministry for Primary Industries. They're an owner, along with a whole lot of industry bodies, and there's more industry bodies now. There's Apples and all sorts of other industry groups in there that own PlantPass. We are NZPPI. We represent nurseries. We are just one of many owners of the scheme. And the reason we've done that, quite intentional on our whiteboard sessions, was to create that tension. If we set the standards, we would want them as low as possible. If they set the standards, they would raise them, keep raising them up. So we've got this nice balance there. When we are on the hook to do a good job in PlantPass, and this ownership model creates the tension. They sign off our standards, they sign off our budgets and our work plans. Creates that shared ownership. They really are invested in PlantPass. They really like it. And so they'll turn up to our meetings, they will provide their know-how, their people, to help support the standard. The other thing we baked into PlantPass was this model where we could achieve equivalence. Really interested to hear the Australian scheme, the biosecurity has that market access and getting across borders. We don't have borders to cross in New Zealand, but what we have is many nursery standards that apply. So I think there's 13 on that list there, but there are way more than that, and there are more coming our way. So these are biosecurity standards that come from either industry bodies to protect themselves, the government themselves, regulations. There's a disease that is killing kauri trees. It comes through the nursery supply chain. It's a phytophthora. And there is a regulated program that applies to nurseries about how they can produce kauri trees. Many, many more. There's a National Pest Plant Accord, which is about weeds. Coming through to regional pest management plans, there are 17 regional councils that have pest management plans. The Auckland Council at the moment has created a list of 350 plant species that they want to ban. So they believe they have information that says that these plant species are a hazard, they're ornamental, and they're looking to ban them. So we are having to hustle and advocate to try and remove those species from that ban list. And there are 16 other councils behind them ready to do the same. So you can see that our tension in New Zealand is not necessarily market access, it is actually meeting a whole range of standards that apply to nurseries. So we baked that into the design of PlantPass, where it is built for equivalence. We negotiate with all of these standard owners, we negotiate with them, and we seek equivalence. Working okay so far. The interesting one there is quarantine. How do we get PlantPass recognised in the plant imports pathway? We're working on it. The other thing we had to bake into PlantPass is the why. Why would a nursery pick it up? And so we've got to create that supply chain demand. So this is our PlantPass Partners program. We have signed in a lot of organisations. Once again, this is a bit out of date. There are more coming into the PlantPass Partners program, including Bunnings signed recently, which we're really delighted about. And we are working on Mitre 10 in New Zealand to sign as well. So these are the people that either buy plants or they influence the purchase of plants. And what we are saying is that they support the system, and over time they will bake it into contracts, into supply contracts, into procurement rules to prioritise or to make it a requirement that their nurseries supplying them have PlantPass certification. So once again, it creates this community of support around PlantPass. It's not just us hustling it, that there's actually this community of support out there in the regions. Waikato Council are up there. Yeah, oh my goodness. They are really active this week. They are out themselves promoting PlantPass around nurseries. So we're talking about marketing PlantPass. That's done for us via the partners. So we created this quite intentional structure to the program that created the right incentives, the right tensions, and the integrity there that would make it successful. So in terms of the standard itself, I won't go through this in detail because it's not a lot different from the other standards that I've seen. You all get it. We've all structured it around that, describe this business. The business describes its risks, it describes how it manages those risks, provides the evidence, receives certification, rinse and repeat. And this is the beautiful thing, is that these systems are all fit for purpose for their countries, but when you look at them, they're probably about 75% similar in terms of their approach, you know. And that creates a massive opportunity for us to actually start to work together and build strength around these programs. So ours is very much, if you go through our checklist, we've just upgraded it, version 2 came out this week. It's focused on New Zealand plant production systems. We very much describe New Zealand language, New Zealand production systems that they can relate to. They look at it and they say, I can see that this is a nursery production system that follows a logical sequence in my day-to-day. So it's a production standard. It doesn't feel like something that someone's imposed on them, it feels like something that they would have written themselves given the opportunity. So that's been very intentional as well. Follows the nursery workflow. We've very intentionally designed the checklist so that it flows the production system in a nursery. An auditor can work with the grower and follow the system through. The other thing we've recently implemented is sector-based auditors. So rather than a certification body coming and doing their audit that may or may not, they're very good at auditing, but they may or may not know nursery production, we have appointed sector-based auditors. So if a forestry nursery is audited, it's from someone from the forestry industry. A horticulture nursery from the horticulture industry, container nursery, someone from the container production industry. And that's worked really well, that they feel that they can relate to the auditor. Yeah. So that's been something we've intentionally implemented. We went away from a single certification body that did everybody to this sector-based model. These are our certificates, that's our register there. It's a pretty basic system. We have 2 tiers of participation. One is registered. They're on their way towards certification. We have 85 nurseries participating in PlantPass. Of about, I'd say, maybe 250, 280 nurseries in New Zealand, which I would say would be at a scale and complexity that would use PlantPass. There's a lot of hobby nurseries, a lot of backyard nurseries or small operations that really probably wouldn't seek certification. But I think there's about 250, maybe 300 that probably would. Of that, we have 85 in the scheme, 30 are fully certified. Now, we've just launched this initiative called the PPN initiative. Rather than giving them a long code, intentionally on those whiteboard sessions and the coffees way back in the day, we intentionally gave them a really short code, certification code that they could use on their plant tags, on their B2B documents, on their emails. Very simple, PPN 123. We are encouraging them to stamp that on all of their plant labels, on their email footers, on their promotional material, just PPN, whatever. We go out there and explain to plant buyers what that means, and we are promoting the PPN. So it's called the PPN initiative, and there's a lot of explanation to buyers about what that number means, so when they notice it, you know, what's that number, that they can explain it to each other, get them talking, put it in their world. So that's an initiative that we have implemented to really champion those certified nurseries. We tell stories about those certified nurseries, they tell stories about themselves, what it means to be PlantPass certified, the changes that they've made, and how running their business is quite different now to what it was before they had PlantPass. So that's been really successful. People have really understood the why. But look, this is hard work. If you look at fruit and vegetable certification or farm certification, the uptake is huge. So probably 2 standards I'd compare in New Zealand. Good agricultural practice standards in fruit production and vegetable production. There's Global Gap and New Zealand Gap. The participation rate in the export sectors is almost 100%. So something like 99.something% of export fruit growers are in Global Gap or New Zealand Gap. 94% of even domestic growers are certified. That's the levels of certification that you see in other similar sectors. That's where we need to get to. We're going to achieve that by having this really strongly connected system. It's connected to government, it's connected to industry, it's got strong governance. I think we've achieved that really well. It's linked into the biosecurity system. So it's baked into GIA. It's baked into individual operational agreements. So for example, we're negotiating Xylella. What would happen in a Xylella response? We are negotiating that with the government at the moment. What that looks like is Xylella would cost, as I said before, something like 30 million. Nurseries and growers would pay probably 40% of that over a 10-year period. They have to pay the government back. And underneath that, there'd have to be a long-term management plan. So Plant Pass for nurseries is the long-term management plan. It's going to be baked into their operational agreement. So they're not going to come up with another one. And this is our strategy, is to make sure that we are around the table negotiating on every one of those operational agreements. There's Ruger's virus being negotiated at the moment. Once again, Plant Pass. I could go on, but you get the picture there. We're baking it into the system. Industry recognition is increasing. That partners program is growing by the week. We're getting more and more inquiries to become Plant Pass partners. It's very easy to be a partner. You just simply sign and you become part of the, we don't charge you any money. We make it very easy to participate. And we're changing attitudes. Like I said, we've got others talking about Plant Pass, not just us. So it's trying to create that movement. So that's what's working really well for Plant Pass. What's not working well is that certification, the uptake has stalled. We've got to that 85, we're struggling to get to 86. People go, yeah, I'm coming, I've had a bad year. You know, it costs a bit of money. Why would I do that just yet? But I'm coming. I hear lots and lots of that going up driveways. They don't argue about the program, they're just coming later. The other thing is getting the actual baked-in recognition. The plant buyers are saying, yep, when you've got enough plants there available for me, when the right time is right, then we will make it a procurement requirement, but we're not just there yet. It's a lot of energy and a lot of hustling to get those equivalence agreements. You are going line by line through with an industry body that is sceptical, that is reluctant, and you're trying to get agreement on equivalence. And so that is, that's hard work. There is this fatigue here. It's our third attempt at a scheme in New Zealand in nurseries. We failed twice before. Plant Pass had to succeed. We had no choice. People were sceptical. They said, oh, not another one of those schemes. We have to overcome that reluctance as well. The other objection we get is some nurseries say, look, it's not enough for me. It's just a general biosecurity standard. I need a high health plant scheme, and we're not providing that. They can't make a label claim to say that their plant material is certified as clean or any sort of virus-free status on the back of Plant Pass. That's another whole level which we are working on. So these are the challenges that we're facing. And I'm sure that you guys are in your schemes as well. So look, this is my call to action for an international audience here. We've all got these schemes. They're quite successful. We've proven that they are effective. But we need to make them the norm. We need to adopt this common language, and I'm really enjoying the work that AIPH is doing. Audrey, keep going. We need to create this common language and process where we all understand each other's schemes. We can explain it to all of our regulators, to our industries, to each other when we're trading plants across borders. We need actual recognition. So baked in regulation, baked in that imports pathway, baked into projects in those expos we saw yesterday, baking biosecurity into the supply of plants, into those projects would have an enormous impact, and show it off. This is a scheme project. So let's bake it in. In New Zealand, we have larger scale revegetation projects going on, and this is what we're doing. We're baking Plant Pass into the funding, into the story around those big projects. Partner and equivalent schemes, well, we've got New Zealand partners, but who's the international partners in all of this? How can we get together and start to align our scheme governance up, our scheme leadership up, our ideas, our technical capability? The skills and knowledge is really important. That extension, it gives extension a purpose. So why are you standing here talking to me about pests and diseases? Because you're about to be audited. So do the people in the nurseries understand sampling schemes, sampling plans? Do they understand pest and disease identification? Those horticulture skills are starting to become really important. So how do our schemes get together with best practice, the resources, the global knowledge, building that? So finally, here's what I think needs to happen. We've got about 10% uptake, and I've heard that elsewhere. The participation in these schemes is appalling. It's a massive problem. How do we take this from 10% uptake to 90%? What are we going to do? We're going to look at each other internationally and say, whoa, there's my benchmark. Let's encourage each other along. We've got to tell a story, a better story. We've got to get rid of that skepticism from buyers and from nurseries themselves. What is this doing? It's just costing me money. We've got to get past that and create some visible value. And I really like the discussion around data. Data tells a story. We've got to tell a story back to the nurseries about why these schemes are important and the impact that they are making. We've got to shift from a rules-based system. You know, New Zealand has 2,400 import health standards. What if we got rid of those and had a systems approach that was based on these assurance processes? Wouldn't that be great? So we're working from rules towards systems. And the other thing is, instead of isolated schemes that we're all beavering away within our own countries, how do we make them globally compatible? So we have equivalence across different schemes where they are benchmarked against each other and they are recognised by each other. So that's my call to action in this international audience. Keen to discuss.